Do you know advanced English grammar and advanced English vocabulary? That's not enough for advanced English. You need these three things too. Let me show you through this example. Look at these written instructions for a very important guest at a hotel. What could be improved? Go to your room to cool off. You're getting dinner at 6 p.m. If you have any problems, don't worry, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Your kids can come to dinner too, and I'll cook whatever you want for breakfast. Well, the grammar and the vocabulary are accurate, but the register is wrong. And the first extra thing you need is something called register. Register is the appropriate style of English for the situation. We often divide this into formal English and informal English. When your English is formal, it follows this pattern. It's professional language, used with people you don't know well, it shows more respect, and it's more common in writing. Informal English, on the other hand, is more familiar language. It's used with people you do know well. It indicates a closer relationship to the people you're speaking to, and is more common in speaking. The hotel should have used formal language in order to be professional and show respect for their guest. Unfortunately, the hotel did not use formal language. And here are 4 ways in which they should have made their message more formal. The first is that they should have avoided phrasal verbs. Phrasal verbs are verbs with more than one word. For example, cool off is a phrasal verb. Instead, use one-word alternatives. Instead of cool off, you could have said relax or shower, depending on what you meant by cool off. Instead of let go, you could say release. Instead of come up with, devise. Back down, you could say relent instead. And instead of go out, you could say leave. Secondly, they should have avoided contractions in the written message. Contractions are where we shorten words in certain situations, such as with pronouns or in negatives. In this text, we have your, which is short for you are, don't, which is short for do not, and I'll, which is short for I will. Some other examples are I'd, which can be short for I had or I would. Your, we've mentioned you are, and we'll, we will. The third way in which they could have made their text more formal is to avoid informal words. There are certain words in English that we tend to only use in informal situations, such as get or kids or want. What are the alternatives here? Well, kids could have been made more formal by using the word children. Boss is an informal word for manager or employer. Get could be replaced with obtain, want for desire, tell, inform, about, approximately. Those are just a few examples of how you can make your language choice in terms of word choice more formal. And fourthly, it could have been made more formal by avoiding idioms. We have this idiom in the text. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. And this is very informal. We could have used a more simple phrase to express the meaning, to make it more formal. Instead of cross that bridge when we get there, we could have said consider at that time. Other examples, through thick and thin is an idiom. More formally, we could simply say forever. Beat around the bush could be made more formal by saying speak plainly. Call it a day, finish. You can say that again, that is true. There are hundreds and hundreds of idioms in English, and they all have formal alternatives. So when you're trying to speak to someone in a professional, respectful way, use those formal alternatives instead of the idioms. So we have this first extra item that helps us speak or write with advanced English, and that is using the appropriate register for your situation. Let's go on to the second item. Let's go back to our hotel text. This time, think, Are the events in order? Well, we don't actually know. We don't know if the events are in order because there is no cohesion in the message. And cohesion means the grammatical way to show how different parts of speech or writing are connected. Let's look at this in more detail. Let's imagine we have a sequence of events, such as in the example here. Breakfast starts with coffee. Afterwards, there is a selection of hot food. Afterwards indicates that the next item will follow the item before, and it's a grammatical indicator to us using a linking word, or a transition signal as some call it. There are many of these linking words for ideas in a sequence. We could use first, second, third, firstly, secondly, thirdly, to begin, next, then, after, and there are more. We could also link similar ideas with particular words. The hotel provides a high-quality breakfast. Furthermore, it provides an evening meal cooked by reputable chefs. So furthermore is a word which links similar ideas. But you can have formal or informal words that link similar ideas. More formally, use furthermore, in addition, moreover. Less formally, and also. Thirdly, linking opposing ideas, such as in the example here. We cannot promise a room without noise. However, we may be able to offer an alternative room where available. So here, however, introduces a contrast or something opposing in the second sentence. The first sentence has a negative feel. We can't do this for you. The second sentence, we can do this instead, and however indicates that change to an opposing idea. There are different types of linkers here that can link across sentences. In other words, they introduce the next idea in a new sentence, or they can link within sentences where you have two clauses joined together by these particular linking words. However, in contrast, by contrast, on the other hand, and nevertheless, can link across sentences. So these would normally appear as one word in a new sentence which has an opposing idea to the previous sentence. But although, but, yet, and even though can link within sentences, but can also link across sentences in an informal context. So here we would have the words joining two clauses together. Although we cannot promise you a room without noise, comma, we may be able to offer an alternative room where available. So here all of the information is in one sentence, and although indicates there's an opposing idea in the two halves of the same sentence. Going further, we can also link with a noun phrase. The examples on the previous slide were all to do with clauses. But here we have an example of linking words that go with a noun phrase instead. For example, we cannot promise a room without noise. In spite of this problem, we may be able to offer an alternative room. So in spite of introduces the noun phrase, this problem. So we have noun phrase, comma, clause, and phrases such as despite or in spite of can do this. Fourthly, we can link to more options. Look at the example. You may have a room with a bath. Alternatively, you may have a room with a shower. Formal ways of linking when there are more options are through alternatively, on the other hand, otherwise, less formally, or. And we also have phrases that link to a reason. For example, since, as, and because can introduce a reason in a clause. For example, since there is a busy road outside of your room, comma, we have installed thick windows. So the reason there is a busy road outside of your room, followed by the result, we have installed thick windows. But we also have linkers that go with noun phrases, because of, due to, or in view of. We could have said, because of the busy road, comma, we have installed thick windows. So noun phrase followed by the result clause. And we can also focus on the result itself and use a linking word that introduces that. Therefore, hence, consequently, or accordingly are more formal ways of doing this, and so is a less formal way of doing this. For example, there is a busy road outside of your room, therefore we have installed thick windows. So here, therefore, goes before the result, not the reason. There are other ways of creating cohesion that don't involve these linking words or transition signals. One is by referring to something already mentioned. Look at the example first. You will find the hotel handbook on your bed. This informs you of our hotel policies. So here cohesion is created by the word this. What does this do? It shows the relationship between the second sentence and the first. This is a replacement word for the phrase underlined in the sentence before, the hotel handbook. So rather than just repeating the words the hotel handbook again and again, we replace it with another word, this, that tells the reader or listener to go back to what they heard before, and that creates cohesion. We can also use the definite article the. Look at the example below. There is a television in your room. The television is the latest version. So we have the television mentioned twice. The television tells me to think about the noun that was mentioned before and that it's the same noun. We mentioned a television in the first sentence, and when we repeat it with the television, we're telling the reader or listener it's the same television again. And here's another way, word chains. Here are two different examples of how word chains work. In the first example, we simply replace the first noun, buses, with alternative words that mean the same thing. Buses are common in Rome. This form of public transport can be found on most main roads. So public transport links back to buses. It's a different word but with a similar meaning, and it creates a link for the reader or listener. In the second example, we take the same root word and we change it according to its position in the sentence. Globalization has been increasing in recent decades. The progression towards a global world has been boosted by the growth of the internet. Many people now work globally rather than only in their own country. So what creates the links in this paragraph? Well, it's the word global, but used in different word class according to the sentence. Globalization, the noun, global, the adjective, and globally, the adverb. And by repeating the same word, but with different word class each time, you create links and you create cohesion in the paragraph. So we have our second vital thing to add to good grammar, vocabulary, and register in order to speak advanced English, and that is cohesion. And you'll find out more about cohesion and English grammar in general on my Perfect English Grammar course. There is a link in the description below this video. Let's go on to the third and final extra thing you need to know to speak advanced English. And that is going back to our text on the hotel again and thinking about this question. Is the organisation of the text appropriate too? And the answer is no. Longer texts need to be coherent. This means the ideas are connected in a logical way. This text is not coherent, and therefore, although we had advanced grammar and advanced vocabulary, and we could have improved the register and we could have improved the cohesion, we would still have a problem of coherence. The ideas are not connected in a logical way. Let me show you what I mean by showing you a different version that does have coherence. Firstly, let's look at a more coherent alternative. Breakfast is at 9 a.m, lunch is at 12 p.m, dinner is at 6 p.m. Your room has a shower, advise us of any problems. Here we separate the information into logical groups. First of all, we put all of the time instructions together. Then we put the other instructions together. This makes the message more coherent. There's appropriate groupings of ideas. But this example is incoherent. Breakfast is at 9 a.m, your room has a shower, dinner is at 6 p.m, advise us of any problems, lunch is at 12 p.m. There's no problem with the grammar, there's no problem with the vocabulary. But all of the instructions are mixed, and this makes it incoherent. It's difficult for the listener or reader to follow, and it's not great English, even though it does a lot of things well. Coherence can also be a problem when you do this. Firstly, when sentences are unnecessarily long. Look at this example. Breakfast is at 9 a.m, lunch is at 12 p.m, dinner is at 6 p.m, but tomorrow breakfast is at 10 a.m, lunch is at 1 p.m, and dinner is at 5 p.m. And on the next day, breakfast is at 9 a.m, and so on and so on. The sentence goes on and on and on, and because there's so much information in one sentence, the reader or listener finds it hard to take it all in. The reason we have different sentences is to divide units of meaning up and make it easier for the reader or listener. If listening, then you would use language such as cohesive devices in order to break up the information more. You do other things as well. Pauses, for example, differences in intonation and stress to show how the information is broken up into pieces. Here's another problem. Too much complex grammar is included at once. Can you spot the type of grammar which has been used too much in this example? I've highlighted it in bold here. We have 5 different examples of the passive being used in one sentence. In fact, 6 examples. People were asked when dinner should be served by the hotel staff who are required to be prepared, to be brought your meals to them so that you can be given your food at the right time. Some people use the passive a lot because they know that the passive is common in more formal English, but it can be overused. If you use it too much, it gives the reader or listener difficulties in working out what the meaning is because they keep having to switch the subject and the object, and they also have to think, has the subject been omitted? If so, what is the subject? And it gets too confusing. So don't be too complex with your grammar all at once. Make sure again that you break up the information in a logical way to make your information more coherent. So those are the 3 things you need to add to advanced English grammar and advanced English vocabulary in order to have advanced English overall. You need to add correct register, cohesion, and coherence. And you can also find out more about coherence in my Perfect English Grammar course. I guess you're wondering what a better version of the hotel text would have been. So let's finish with that. Here's an improved list of the same instructions. 2 meals are provided each day. The first meal is breakfast, which is available on request at a time that suits you. In addition, dinner is served at 6 p.m. in the evening. Children are welcome to join us in our restaurant. We hope you have an enjoyable stay and that your room is to your satisfaction. However, if you have any concerns, please contact reception and we will endeavour to resolve any issues. Excellent grammar, excellent vocabulary, excellent register, excellent cohesion and excellent coherence. This is a good advanced English message.